If you are tired of feeling overwhelmed by life, as though you're at the effect rather than at the cause of life, if you ever feel like you're falling behind, you just can't catch up, you're missing something, then I have really good news for you because today what I'm going to share with you can change that for you. I'm going to share with you one of the biggest mistakes that people make that prevents them from actually achieving the results that they truly want, so that this blocks them from really living that fulfillment. Instead, they just go on struggling with the old anxiety, the old frustration, the old despair. It's because of this one mistake, and I'm going to share with you what that one mistake is, and I'm going to lay out for you a very simple and yet extraordinarily powerful plan that when you work with it can really, truly, honestly transform your life. Now, notice that I said, when you work with it. So I want to set the proper expectations. I mean, if you think that you're going to come here and you're going to hear this once and that this is going to instantaneously transform everything for you from here on out, it could happen because anything is possible, but it's unlikely. And many people will think that that's how it's supposed to work. And so they'll just keep searching and searching and searching and searching. And there'll come a point, and perhaps this point has come for you, where you realize the pain of the ongoing seeking is too much. You don't want to keep doing that. And when that occurs, then you're ready to actually begin to really see real positive change in your life because you're willing to accept responsibility. So for anybody who is willing to accept that responsibility, I promise you, I give you my word that when you actually work with what I share with you today, this will change your life. Or more correctly, you will change your life because you will end the ignorance that has been causing your suffering. You will begin the new dawning of awareness in your life, which can enhance every area of your life. It can work miracles in every area of your life. This is true at a material level, and this is also true at a spiritual level. You see, when you work with these principles that I'm going to share with you, you can enhance the quality of your material life. So if you struggle with financial issues, you can work with this knowledge in order to end that struggle with finances so that you can begin to actually live abundance. If you struggle with relationship issues, if you're seeking for love, or if you're constantly seeking for approval from others, or if you're otherwise experiencing pain in relationship or disappointment in relationship, when you work with these principles, you can transform that into a life in which you experience the inner abundance of right relationship, where you can experience love, harmony, peace, contentment, fulfillment. All of that's possible when you work with these principles. Same is true of health. Same is also true if what is of most importance to you is your spiritual well-being. If you are somebody who really, you just say, look, what most matters to me is true unconditional peace. When you work with these principles, that can become enlivened in your life. You can actually know and live that. Okay, so that's all possible for you, again, when you work sincerely and consistently with these. So this is not something that you're just going to hear once. This is something that I really encourage you to come back to over and over again, because the more that you work with this, the more depth of insight you will receive, the more clarity. So it's really, really important that you have the proper expectations. So first, I said that I'm going to share with you this number one mistake, or a very significant mistake that I see people making time and time again, which prevents them from having the real success in their life. And this big mistake that people make is that they are working, or rather they are focused on the techniques rather than principles. So just notice what happens if you're focused on techniques rather than principles. It's like the difference between giving a man a fish and teaching a man to fish. Because notice, if you give a man a fish, he eats for one day, but if you teach a man to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. And so it is the difference between working with techniques versus working with principles. Now, I'm not saying that techniques have no value. They do. However, if you are focused primarily on the techniques without actually having the understanding, the depth of understanding that the principles can give you, then you are going to go on seeking, just as I described earlier, because you'll use one technique and sometimes it might seem to give you some results and sometimes it doesn't. And maybe you'll hit a dry spell and you say, oh, the technique has stopped working. What do I do? And you go on to the next YouTube video, the next book, the next workshop, and whatever else in search of the next technique. So when I'm talking about techniques, I'm talking about, you know what they are, right? I mean, you know that you've tried these things. You've tried the EFT. You've tried the affirmations. You've tried the scripting. You've tried the specific visualization techniques. You've tried all of, the guided meditations and all the rest of it. And all of those things, again, they may have value, but if you don't understand the principles, if you're just focused on the techniques, then you are really robbing yourself of your real wealth, because you'll just go on giving your power away to things outside of you, to people outside of you, to techniques outside of you, imagining that that's where your salvation lies. So it's to work with the principles, to focus on the principles will ground you in your fundamental empowerment. And this allows you then to actually be independent of the techniques. So you're free to make use of the techniques to the degree that they are supportive and helpful for you, to the degree to which they will facilitate more rapid positive changes in alignment with what you want. However, when you understand the principles, you are no longer reliant upon the techniques because the principles do all of the heavy lifting. So understanding principles is really where it's at, and most people fail to recognize this. So today, as I said, I was not only going to share with you this number one mistake, but also I want to lay out a plan. It's a very simple, yet very profound plan. It has three parts. I'm going to share with you three principles. And I'm going to give you an introduction to each of these principles in a way that you can begin to work with them. And as I said earlier, when you persist in actually working with these, that's when the magic happens. So I just want to be clear about having the proper expectations. If you think that you're just going to sit here and listen to it, and that's going to somehow magically change everything, you might be setting yourself up for disappointment. However, if you have the attitude of wanting to actually be able to understand what it is that's being pointed to so that you can then commit to working with this in your own life day after day after day so that it can enrich your life, then you will be richly rewarded. So the first principle is the principle of oneness. Now, this is a principle that is often overlooked, and yet it is the most important principle of all. If you want to manifest a life that is meaningful, that is fulfilling, that gives you real, true satisfaction, I cannot overstate the importance of working with this principle, because anything else that you do in the absence of this principle will fail. That's how important this principle is. You must work with this principle if you want to have real success. Second principle. So second principle is principle of intention. This principle of intention, see, you're always working with intention. Intention is whatever it is that you are wanting or believing that you want. But most of the time that intention is unconscious, and therefore you get an unconscious life. And the chances of an unconscious life being truly satisfying are very, very small. So it's up to you to make that conscious. Next is the principle of attention. So I'm sure you've heard me talk about this law, the law of attention. Whatever you put your attention on, that's where the energy goes. So you experience whatever you put your attention on persistently. So if your attention is going to thoughts of lack, beliefs of lack, imagination of lack, then what do you experience? You experience lack. So the power of attention is very, very, very important in the process of manifestation. It is how the energy is directed. If you don't like what you're experiencing, then you need to work with this power consciously, because it's already happening unconsciously. You're the creator of your experience. You're creating your experience already utilizing these principles. You just don't know it.